Welcome back to Magnum Eats. Today I have the immense pleasure of hosting a true visionary and a driving force behind some of the most remarkable transformations in both business and property. Our guest's journey is a testament to the power of determination, innovation, and a genuine tenacity to leave a lasting legacy. Hailing from Manchester, our guest story is a blend of humble beginnings and extraordinary achievements, from a childhood in Rochdale to becoming one of the most esteemed developers and business profiles in the region. Their path is nothing short of inspiring. Starting as a joiner and embarking on a journey that led to the creation of a kitchen manufacturing empire, they sold their company at the age of 29, pocketing a staggering £12 million. But that was just the beginning. Over the years, they have been at the helm of ventures ranging from property development to construction, building a lasting legacy that extends far beyond financial success. We have the privilege of delving into their insights, experiences, and wisdom. Whether you're an aspiring investor seeking guidance on navigating the world of entrepreneurship or simply a curious listener, get ready for a conversation that promises valuable takeaways and a glimpse into the mind of a true trailblazer. David Russel, welcome to the podcast.
Hi, thanks very much for inviting me.
Pleasure. And you know what? I appreciate you keeping to your word. I know you're extremely busy, as the people around you keep telling me. Malum, good to have you back on.
Good to be back.
And for those that are watching, if you want to watch Malum's previous podcast, then click on the link shown on screen now.
Worth
Gents, it is, and we've had a great feedback from that podcast. It's great to have you back on. And David, naturally your reputation precedes you, and we'll get stuck into it more and more as the podcast goes on. Growing up in Rochdale to becoming one of the most successful property developers, describe your childhood, and more importantly, did you see where you'd be today?
Well, I studied Greek and Roman literature, classics, and Achilles was given a choice when he was a 15-year-old lad, which was a short and glorious life or a long and boring one, so I picked the Achilles route. And I said to my dad, if I could be a millionaire by the time I'm 30, I'll pick the Achilles route, which was great till I got to 30, and then that could have been the end of my life. I'd made the bet with goddess Athena. But yeah, I told my dad when I was 15 I'd be a millionaire before I was 30.
You did, so you visualised it from that young of an age.
Yeah, he said, "Hey, you going to do it?" And I said, "I don't know yet, but I just got the drive to look after and protect my mum and my family, because we came from a very extreme poor background." And so it's just a matter of working hard and finding the right route. And that's one of the reasons why I wanted to sell to FTSE 100 before my 30th birthday.
Yeah.
Which I made by 2 weeks.
Wow. And I'd seen on a previous interview that you said you came from a very privileged background, but you grew up poor.
Yeah, that must have been my accent, because I definitely said poor, not privileged.
Well, two things that aren't commonly associated, but clearly you had good memories from your childhood.
Yeah, I wouldn't swap my childhood for anybody I've ever met. I was in a family of 9. As the youngest, lots of love, but also a lot of discipline from my dad. And hard work was the root. And if you listened, funnily enough, to Arnold Schwarzenegger last night when I was watching his life, and his was all about hard work and discipline.
Yeah.
And honesty and integrity. And coming from a very poor background and lots of families similar to that, then I respect people's values and the money. So the only thing I've ever wanted to do is give people value for money and get to their budget, because our street was listed on a Thursday, Friday night with collectors coming up the road, debt collectors, Prudential, shopper check people, all overcharging and not looking after the people on the street, which was terrible. So for me, it was always important to get somebody's budget first, what they could afford, and then sell them something they could afford and make sure it was value for money as well.
And that certainly is a staple within the developments that you build today, and we'll come on to that. Talk us to the point of building a manufacturing company. It was a kitchen manufacturing company, Farouche Cuisine.
Yeah, that's all about quality again, and people letting me down. When we first set off, I was on my own, and slowly but surely we built it up with people. But the faster we went, the quality was coming in poor. People let me down on time, and so I actually went into manufacturing out of a need to actually, set my own destiny rather than allow other people to let me down. Because whenever I hear people moaning about something hasn't gone right or something's not worked out, I always say, well, that's because you let people let you down. And so basically I always wanted to, get there as fast as I could and make sure the quality's right. And so slowly but surely we got a bigger and bigger factory, and in the end it was 280,000 square foot factory.
Wow.
We moved 4 times in 7 years.
Wow.
And the last big move, I didn't allow the lads who wanted to work for me to go home until we moved factory. So we finished all the kitchens on Friday, and we moved the entire factory over the Saturday and Sunday. And worked literally 24/7, and I led by example, which is what I've always tried to do with younger lads like Mellum here.
Yeah, and look, these figures that are thrown around, you know, selling the company at the age of 29 for sort of £12 million, or you'd pocketed £12 million,
which was a lot 36 years ago.
Yeah, it was huge sums of money, but you know, there's no escaping that hard work, and I think it derives from the fact that you were trying to solve a problem.
Yeah, you know, the first thing was to make enough money to just bring some money home for my parents and sort mum and dad out in their own house and their own car eventually, things like that. But the drive and the thirst soon took over because I really enjoy what I do and still do. So I still work. People keep saying, when are you going to retire, when are you going to take it easy or whatever, but I actually enjoy what I do.
It's a question that I had actually
prepared. Well, I enjoy go out for a drink afterwards, and that's part of it. If I retired, I'll be sat at home now.
Yeah. On
my third newspaper or just twiddling my thumbs.
True. And what does pocketing £12 million at the age of 29 do to your mindset?
I help other people deal with it now because it's quite a shock. But like anybody from people like that who sell out, or top athletes who suddenly retire, ex-SAS boys, a couple of people I know, suddenly come out of a lifestyle that they've been so used to for so long, and they hit 29, 30, 31, and they suddenly retired. A couple of footballers retired. And it's very challenging to learn how to deal with all of that. And my immediate emotions was one of anger and frustration, because I woke up one morning, served my 1.5 years with the business and kept faith to that. But the minute my contract was up, I left. And you wake up and you feel useless, and you don't have a job, and you don't know where you're going to go, what you're going to do.
That was your purpose for what, almost 10 years,
exactly,
right?
Yeah. And so you're fully focused on that, and everything's in your head going. And I think a lot of people struggle when they suddenly retire, footballers athletes who've been looked after since they was 12, 13, 14, to learn to cope in effect in what I call the outside life, outside of your business or your drive and commitment for 10, 15, 20 years, is really difficult. It is really difficult.
You've been quoted to say, you need to be hard where it is needed in business.
Well, it's just the same as bringing up kids. You get them to love you first by honest endeavour and love and affection and time, and spend time with them, so that when they let you down, they feel like they've really let you down, and you have to pull them on that and structure it and tell them where they've gone wrong and how they could have done better for themselves. So I have lost my temper on more than one occasion. When one guy pushed it too far in the kitchen days, I tipped the desk up on top of him. And
I'm guessing you've toned that down over the years.
Yeah, probably I've learned and I'm a bit more mature now, but I think when people step out of line, you have to tell them and give them a chance to actually sort that out. But at the same time, it continues, and you've set an example to the rest of the company, and you've got to let them go. But I've never been frightened of sacking somebody if I needed to. Even my sales director, we'd have regular meetings, and I tend to give people the head and allow them sometimes to make their own mistakes, because it's the best lesson they learn is when it's their mistake. And I give them the head and advise them and still let them choose which way they want to go. But one thing I don't allow is if I've talked to them and given them my time, and we agree a way forward, and maybe sometimes it's not their way forward, it's my way forward, I expect them to put the same amount of effort in to make that decision succeed as they would if it's their decision. So if they step out of line and go a different way than what we agreed in the meeting and took my time for an hour and a half, that's when I really get,
peeved off.
Yeah, and I remember
a lot of mental notes.
Well, I remember
sacking
my sales director. Just picked the phone up and rang security and said, "Do you want to come up and take?" I won't say his name. Take this gentleman home and make sure you bring his car back. And he said, "What are you doing?" I said, "You sacked. I've done it. You're not listening. It's my business. You get a salary. If it fails, it fails, and it costs me." So I did work for 3 days because the guy was brilliant. He's gone on to make a few $100 million on his own since I sold the kitchen business.
Right.
And he rang me 3 days later and says, "Look, I really respect him, the fact that it got to a point where one of us had to and if you'd back down, I'd have lost respect for you. He says, so I want you to know you was right, and I'll come back in tomorrow. So Brian said his name. You're not coming back in until I've re-interviewed you. And I says, but I'll meet you at Charlton Graveyard.
Yeah.
And so we met outside Canadian charcoal.
Interesting setting.
So we met at this thing, Canadian charcoal pit. Walked Brian around the graveyard. I said, just have a look at all those names, Brian. Keep looking at them. And he said, what are we doing this for? I said, it's full of indispensable people, Brian.
No way.
And when one door closes, another one always opens. In my lifetime, for anybody who's listening to this message, if you lose something, never be frightened of losing it, because honestly, something better comes through the door. And it's always meant to be. You just got to have the strength and courage and conviction to get rid of that cancer. And there isn't anybody in my business that I can't do the job better than. In my entire business, whether that's construction director, sales director, whatever position, I can do it better than them, because even in a mature market or a mature job, if you do it better with more effort and more enterprise, you'll always succeed.
Yeah.
So I've never been frightened of letting somebody go in a business.
Malum, do you love David?
That's a good
It's
lead.
starting to feel like a third wheel.
No, we'd never let that happen.
Do I love David? I have huge respect for David.
Yeah.
Since I joined the business, David has always been very fair. He's always given me his time, which has allowed me to grow within the business and as a professional as well. So I guess I do love you.
Yeah. And I know you hold yourself to really high standards,
Yeah,
working closely with you, and I think that's one thing that, you know, if you're setting those standards and those standards aren't being matched across the board, then that gives you the entitlement to sort of get a little bit ruffled, right?
Yeah, but that's, Ferguson was a great football manager. He's got to deal with loads of different personalities and different characters. How he treated Cantona, a lot of people were shocked, including me. But you've got to treat everybody in different ways. Malum is a completely different person than other people in the company I could name. And so everybody has to be looked after in their way, pulled when they're feeling sorry for themselves, because I don't really believe anyone should feel sorry for themselves. There's opportunity out there in the UK.
Yeah.
And it's just how you deal with that challenge. And everything's great all the time. It'd probably be boring. So it's tough times, when the tough get going. So,
Yeah.
But Malum's a top lad. Lots of people in the company have been handpicked. They've not necessarily applied for the job. We spotted them like we spotted Malum, and knew he'd be a great guy to have part of the team and part of the partnership.
Yeah.
And he's not proven anybody wrong. But a lot of people come from recommendations.
Fine.
Very few from interviews.
Malum, try not to blush there.
Well, that's true. I met David when I was working for a private house builder down in London in 2015, 2016.
Yeah.
Then I was in the land team. David knew my MD at the time. Very quickly, David saw my potential and talent, so started to groom me to come over to Property Alliance Group.
In the right direction, grooming, by the way.
Yeah.
Correct, yeah. But jokes aside, yeah, David invited me to go up to Manchester to see the residential portfolio, and I was blown away. I was very impressed. Not just by the developments and the quality of them, but also the vision of the business and the story of Manchester. Because up to that point, I was very London focused. When I understood the kind of trajectory that Manchester was on, I wanted to be a part of it. So I think 5-6 months later, I joined the business as a junior sales consultant. Fast forward 7.5 years, I'm one of the senior directors and shareholders within the business. And that's obviously, I'm very proud of those achievements to date.
Yeah, you should be.
And the future is very exciting for Alliance.
And that's the other point, by the way. All my businesses, we give shares to key people.
Okay.
I'd sooner have 50% of something big than 100% of
Yeah, true.
100% of nothing. Most of my business, I own 50% or slightly less sometimes.
Okay.
So we're happy to reward key people with substantial shares, not a little ticker, but something more than that. And
Yeah, it's a mindset thing, right? I think a lot of serial entrepreneurs or successful people look at things exactly the way you said it. Being the founder of PAG, Property Alliance Group, for those viewers that are watching, and all the information and will be in the description box below. What sets PAG apart in the Manchester scene?
Well, my bank manager won't appreciate me saying it, but we don't just go for profit. I can name quite a few builders in Manchester. And Malin's right about Manchester. I was also extremely fortunate to be in Manchester because it's got a very forward-thinking council, the most commercially minded council, I think, in Europe. And so the opportunities for growth there and the support you get from the council is amazing.
Did you pinpoint that David, from
No,
early on by
I
accident?
grew up in Rochdale.
Oh, fine.
You know, you move in towards Manchester for
Okay.
size and value. But we've always, all our buildings, there isn't one building the same, but you can drive around Manchester and quite a lot of buildings are the same. And by that I mean, typically it's a shoebox on its end and it's just a box. And it's built that way for cheapness and speed. All my buildings are very different, so we take a great deal of pride in all the awards that we win, of the year, of the region, of the north of England. And we sell for the developers, but we actually personally look at their schemes first. And if we don't like the scheme, we ask them to change certain aspects of it or certain things. And if they don't want to change them, then we just say, well, then you're not for our brand. So quality is really important. Fun in the job's really important, and enjoy taking people there and showing people it. And I said it actually funny this morning. We bring investors in from overseas, and when they fly into Manchester, I have my guys show them buildings that we did 15, 20 years ago that aren't dated. They still look great. And the most important thing, which is a conversation I had, our service charge and maintenance and looking after the building 10, 15 years later, because we picked the right product. We didn't go for cheaper product that breaks after 5 years or 8 years, and then you can bang it on the service charge. Our product stands the test of time, and also the style and the look stands the test of time. So we get record rents in our buildings because people want to stay in them, and people want to buy them and sell them a second time, a third time round. So if people check my portfolio, including offices and industrial, even industrial unit is extremely important because somebody works in there, and often it's not the PA or the secretary or the person who makes final decisions about which industrial unit. And the industrial unit sounds like it's dull, but it's not. It can be really interesting. And just make the office nice, the toilet nice.
You'd probably find 80% of developers avoid showing you previous schemes sort of 10, 15 years down the line because they know that wear and tear element. So that's really interesting hearing you talk about that. But what's also really interesting hearing you say is your buildings. You refer to them as my buildings. And when we'd first spoken and got in touch with each other, madam, you pressed on the point that for David, it's about building a legacy. It's about driving through Manchester.
Community.
Absolutely. And leaving something as a lasting legacy around you and driving past and being proud of those buildings.
Yeah. I think to expand on what David just said, and I mean this with respect to other competitors who were building in Manchester at the time, but when PAG or Property Alliance Group started to build residential developments in Manchester, those that were on the market were quite basic. Property Alliance Group bought that hotel-style living, which was common in London, to Manchester. So it wasn't just kind of top finishes internally within the apartments. It was on-site 5-star facilities from 25-metre swimming pools, cinema rooms, state-of-the-art gyms, co-working spaces, which was missing from the marketplace and is what people wanted at the time, whether that's for rental purposes or end use. And like David said, it's no surprise that PAG assets were achieving the highest values and rents within that market, within Manchester.
Yeah, and it still works. Even yesterday, I picked somebody up to take them to one of our sites for a particular reason, and we drove them back to the station. I took them past Oxygen, one of our buildings, and I was telling them how important it is to have social space. And I said, the Oxygen's packed out during the day. They're not just stuck in the box, particularly COVID days. They're actually downstairs, mixing and matching. We even had a couple of marriages from people who met in Oxygen. And we drove past to prove the point. And he actually said, you know what, David, I didn't totally believe you when you said it'd be packed out, but your reception's rammed. And it's probably about 3,000 square foot of space that we've devoted and given over to residents, which could have been space we could have made extra money on. But it creates a great environment for everybody, and people are mixing and enjoying themselves. And then the rentals stay longer. And the last building we're on at the moment, we've added an extra 12 to 14% more space than a similar competitive model on the market. and the guys as well, they complain it's slightly more expensive to buy. So people, when they're buying a plan, are saying, well, I can get a 2-bed round the corner for X, and yours is another 10, 15 grand more. Why is that? Because it's a similar 2-bed. I mean, well, no, it's not a similar 2-bed.
It's not, no.
It's 12, 14% bigger. And actually, do you know what? That was a great thing to say, but I went around some of the finished apartments last week, and genuinely, when you go in the bedrooms, it is a bedroom. The bed's not going to be touching the wall. You can actually get out of bed and not struggle to put a wardrobe in there, or a cupboard, or a set of drawers. The space in them is fantastic. Just that extra 12% makes huge difference to the resident who's going to move out of his tiny 2-bed because he's fed up of squeezing around. Come into ours, appreciate the difference in space, pay maybe a bit more, because that's been my philosophy on quality. They'll pay a bit more for quality, and they'll stay longer. So 2.5 to 3 years, tenants are staying in their buildings, not flipping every 6, 9, 12 months, which for an investor is paying for the decorating to be redone, reletting fees, this, that, and the other. Their tenants stay long because they're happy in the building. They've got great space, good downstairs, great social space. It works, it really works up.
No, it does. I've seen it firsthand, and just doing some browsing and looking at the scope, you've got something like 3,000, almost 3,000 units in pipeline. Your son Alex, who's the CEO of PAG as we speak, big shoes to sort of fit into and follow, Malam. Where do you see gaps in the market moving forward? I mean, Manchester's got your name written all over it, right? For you and what you're trying to do with Alliance, what's next?
We are a research-led company, so we do rely on third-party data, and then we use that with our own market knowledge. I mean, if you look at Jones Lang's recent Big Six development report, where they assess the key markets outside of London on a number of variables, it's clear that Manchester is at the top, and the future is very bright for the city. So Manchester will continue to be one of our core markets. Where do we see gaps? I think at the moment when I say we, Alliance Investments, we're big advocates for fringe locations. So we refer to them internally as kind of Zone 2. For example, we've got a great development on Aldsall Lane called Berkeley Square, which is right on the River Irwell. That hasn't seen exponential growth in the last 3 to 5 years, which creates an opportunity for investors. And if you look at what's happening with the Media City expansion and just the general expansion of Manchester City Centre, that strategic positioning is going to benefit from the growth of those kind of two financial hubs. So we expect that buyers will see 35-40% growth on their apartments in the next 5 years, particularly those that buy early on in the off-plan process. In terms of other areas where we want to, at the start of this year, I think we kind of touched upon it when we had the last podcast. At the start of this year, we set out our goals and where we wanted to be 3, 5, 10 years' time as a company. And in order for us to grow to the level that we want to, we need to bring other service lines into the business. I can't say too much about what they are. For example, we want to bring a land department into Alliance Investments. What that team will do is they will find the best sites across the UK, not just in Manchester, for our development partners. That will feed back round to Alliance Investments. We'll sell those projects, and ultimately our channel partners and investors will benefit from them. So those are a couple of areas we're keen to explore other subsectors within property investment. So we want to get back into the PBSA space. David has built some phenomenal student projects in the past that were very, very successful pre-pandemic. There was obviously a few changes during the pandemic, but now that that's kind of behind us, we want to get back into that sector. We're also looking at a few sites where there's kind of holiday lodges. And the way that we package those products up is that our investors will get guaranteed returns up to 8% net for as long as 10 years. And we also structure it that there's a buyback option at, say, year 3 or 7, giving the investor guaranteed exit. So it's just adding diversification to our portfolio so we can ultimately become the best master agent in the UK.
Massive demand for that in the market as well.
Massive demand, yeah. Through and obviously that, not just through COVID, but if you look at the data since COVID, that sector, and I'm referring to holiday lodges, is just going up and up and up. So, yeah, watch this space. There's a lot that we're working on.
Amazing.
Yeah, we're looking at. I spoke with some people this morning. We've done 14 hotels in the last 9 years. Big hotels, people like Motel One. Sold it onto a fund called Aviva. We've done Stay Cities. That's gone to Royal London Pension. But newer startup businesses who they might struggle to actually go straight to a fund on a 25-year lease. Speaking with the guys this morning, they've got a great product. They've got 4 hotels already, running at 97% occupancies.
Wow.
They've got a great brand and they're really solid people. And we're looking to potentially sell that off on a yield at 6% over 5 years. And they've got an exciting product and 2 great sites, one in Glasgow by the river and one down in London. So there's opportunities to actually look at that. And of course, we were seriously looking at co-living up till COVID, and you've got to wait till that market comes back. But co-living is another investment level that we'll push through and look to do the design and the content and offer it as a potential investment for our investors that we've retained for a long time, because they come back again and again and again to buy from us.
You're a serial entrepreneur. The likes of Property Alliance Group, Alliance Investments, APAM, Alliance Property Asset Management,
Yep.
Russell's Construction, and I'm sure the list can go on and on and on. How do you fuel your fire?
I just love meeting people, working with people, like to see other people become successful. You know, I say it because it's here, but it's true. It's changed Malcolm's life. Everybody earns an annual salary, and they'll spend it whatever level of salary they earn. So people run up that cost. But if one day they sell the shares and end up with a big lump sum, and have the enjoyment during that period of 5 years, 8 years, because I tend to flip companies 8 to 10 years.
Okay.
But keep the mothership Alliance, which is the brand.
Reason being, the 8 to 10 year strategy?
I get bored. Same with me women. I swap my wife every 10 years.
Okay, great.
Maybe I try
Cut that
a lot.
out.
No, we'll leave that in.
Yeah.
We'll leave that in.
Lots of different positions in business, but there is also in your marriage. And
That's good advice.
I'm being a bit tongue-in-cheek. They probably get fed up with me because I'm never at home.
Yeah.
I just enjoy working. I enjoy the challenge and coming up with something new or original. The APAM model was, when the market crashed in 2008, I had a lot of staff, a lot of great guys who'd worked with me for a long time. People stay with me forever, 20, 30 years. My PA's been with me 32 years. And they've got wives, they've got mortgages, they've got commitments. So we decided to completely flip the model and go at all the banks. So we ended up that model in 2008 through to 2015, 2016 when I sold it, was solely working for all the banks with all the challenged assets. And we just repositioned the assets, whether it's offices to resi or whether it was a warehouse that we did something else with, multi-let it or whatever. And we worked with all the developers who were struggling. So the banks didn't throw the developer out. We worked with them in partnership, hence the name Alliance. And we made it work. And come 2015, we sold it to a fund. And that business is still thriving with about 70-odd staff now. And you say change people's lives. There's a girl there that started as a secretary, and Charlie. And when we sold, she has 3% because she'd worked her way through the company.
Yep.
Become one of the most important people in the business. And she got a cheque for, a sizable amount, and it changed her life. Give her a deposit for a house. She's got married. She's got 2 kids now. Stays in touch, lets her know what she's doing.
Yeah.
So yeah, it's I just like the fun of it and the enjoyment of it.
Well, I looked into it. APAM assets under management was what, 4.5 billion, or is about 4 point. So you're talking huge sums now.
Yeah, when I sold it, it had 3-point-something billion under asset management.
Got you.
Yeah.
And it's one thing making money, right? So at the age of 29, you pocket £12 million. There's another thing keeping that money and being wise with it, right? That's a knack in itself.
Yeah.
What advice would you give to people that come into money or make a little bit of money to get to that next level, right?
Well, you should probably put it into 3 pots, and your safe pot has to be, for me, bricks and mortar. My dad brought me up to listen to all the old sayings because they've been around a long time. And if you can apply to an old saying and make your decision, then that's the safe route. So 1/3 of my pot's always in safe stuff, and bricks and mortar, homes, houses, apartments, even a holiday home, I've had several of those, and you're getting a free holiday every year and you sell it, and if you bought wisely, you'll always sell it for more than what you paid for it. But for me, and for anybody's advice, you just add another property whenever you can afford it, and then add another, and you get the increase in value, and leverage no more than 50% against it, and just keep topping it up.
Mm-hmm.
I've met many people who are pretty ordinary, and they got to 50, 55, and they've ended up with 12 houses.
Yep.
And other people ask me, how did they get there? I'm much better than them, I'm more talented. And I said, well, you're not really. You're just a bit, butterfly approach to your work and your methods and your business. These friends.
Yeah.
One particular guy's 60 odd now, and he's really not got any assets or income because he's just spent and not put some away for a rainy day, and doesn't respect money. And and his best friend, Mark, kept buying a house or apartment every 2 or 3 years. Stuck to it. He's not boring or dull. He just stuck to it and stuck to his. And here he is now. He's retired, enjoying himself. Got, I think it's 11 or 12 properties, and he's doing his vintage car racing, and he's seeing a lot of his family. They're very happy. So a third should always go, if you've got good wealth, a third should always go on property for me.
It's managing the money, isn't it? I think it's so easy to come into money or have money and just be, like you said, have that butterfly approach, just spend.
Yeah. Get rich quick things like, I might be completely wrong, but Bitcoin and shares.
Yeah.
If you're not in it, I'd never venture into that, because even I've ventured into and lost money at small amounts compared. But I think property is solid, and over any period of time, 10 years onwards, it always outperforms anything else in my book.
Yeah, agreed. There's a big thing I suppose you're taught it from a young age, which is work hard, work hard, work hard. But having come across loads of entrepreneurs over the years, it isn't that they work hard that I sense that they do. It's more being efficient with their time.
Yeah, yeah.
I think the old school sort of entrepreneurs would really get their hands dirty. You talk about the kitchen manufacturing company. That was probably you really getting your hands dirty, hard graft.
Yeah.
But now it's more you working smart.
Yeah, you've got to learn
hard.
to delegate and let go of the reins a little bit. If you're too controlling, that becomes very difficult for the person as well. You've got to trust in the people you pick and let them go out and do it, and be there to support them, and encourage their desires in terms of what direction we're going.
30 years under your belt, or 30 years plus, when it comes to PAG. If you had to sort of write a script for the next 30 years with the likes of Malum and the people around you, where would you want to see PAG?
Genuinely, more guys like Malum working with us, enjoying themselves, making good money, building up that asset, and seeing their life. Malum's just first question I asked him today is, how's the little one doing? He had a baby. And I'm still thinking it's 1 or 2 months ago, and of course he reminded me it's 7 months ago.
Yeah.
He's seeing them, meeting the partners, enjoying the company, and watching them build the business up. Tom, one of my sons, works with Malum quite a lot. Alex is, as you say, on the commercial side at head office, and just building that team and enjoying it. And like one of the guys said, should I get the team together? Yeah, have a barbecue at your house, Nick, and make sure you invite me. So I'll go and enjoy that, and I'll meet people. I mean, we have a big party every year, and everybody comes.
I think it's the right balance. Is normally CEOs, chairmen, the first question they'd ask is, how's business? But you see it clearly as, how's the little one? I think it's paying attention to the people around you, knowing that they have lives, and certainly practice what they preach. I think that 3 allocation of pot 1, pot 2, pot 3, Madam and I talk on a regular basis, and you practice what you preach. It's certainly about bricks and mortar, isn't it? I'm not sure, are you one for predictions? Are you one for projections across the real estate market?
I read up a lot about it, and I actually meet other people. We have people in Manchester who have similar sort of levels of business, from Rennica to Bruntwood. So we do meet at that level and talk about and discuss. One particular guy was worried we could call it a cartel, but it's not. It's not controlling the market. It's actually, for instance, working with agents when the market was dipping in 2008. The agent was just driving the deals and setting landlords off against each other. So I put together a group of 8 or 9 like-minded landlords and said, let's sit down with the agents and find out how we can best reward them and not set us against each other. So I'm all for creating a group of people and then discuss their problems and have a sort of agreement. It doesn't get discussed outside of that environment. A bit like the YPO, the Young Presidents Organisation, where they have Chatham House rules. And so yeah, we talk about the market, we talk about where it's going, what's happening.
Where do you see things down the line, David?
Well, I've been slightly wrong up to now in this last one. I thought it might have not gone as high as it has an interest rate, but yeah, it's tough for everybody, and obviously it's tough for us as well, because things slow down and people hold back. And with 2 huge schemes in Manchester, one's £350 million development scheme with 1,200 students for these guys to sell to investors, and a science corridor. And a lot of the funds that come in with us are all just sat in their hands now, because for a fund manager to make a mistake, it's potentially his career.
Right.
So better not make a decision. And so we're on a big hotel in Manchester, and a huge amount of office space and residential. Another scheme that they're doing that looks fantastic. I mean, it will look great next to a cathedral, but they're holding back a bit as well. And so it's when they come back in the market, really, because we can draw down money against our assets and our business and our portfolio, and we can build. And I'm not intimidated by lack of sales, because I know we can drive it. We're the master of our own destiny on that, so we can push sales. We can switch the channels from one to another building, so we can do all that and deliver it. And by the time you deliver it in a year, 2 years' time, the market will have come back. So my slightly wrong calculation, interest rates have gone up a bit, but yeah, I think we're just starting to see it into September now, when funds will start talking to us. We've already had a couple of inquiries.
Okay.
And it'll start picking up coming up to Christmas. The difference in the 08 market is there's a lot more money around now, and it needs to find homes. And so I think it will come back quite strongly coming up to Christmas.
Do you feel that there's still that pent-up demand from COVID?
100%.
People are just still waiting around.
Yeah, and there's 3 or 4 things that caused the recent sort of problem. And the other one is construction cost. You know, the material cost and labour cost. And what you pay a day rate for a joiner or electrician, a tiler, for instance, in the last 3-4 months compared to what they're starting to agree to now, it's starting to settle down. Look, every tradesman's worth his money for me, particularly if he's good.
Yeah.
And as it got too busy last year, it was hard to get tradesmen. I've worked on jobs, one particular job where I actually didn't like what they were doing at all. And I just threw him off the job because his answer back to him wasn't acceptable. And the foreman complained that he's going to struggle to replace him. I said, fine, we don't want him on the job, so okay, the job's going to take a month longer to finish, but at least it's going to be finished right. The trades now are not dictating. We're getting back to a sense of level playing field in terms of value, day rate. They work a full day as well, they're not going home at 3 o'clock. You've got a bit more control over prices. Steelwork's coming down, timber's coming down, plasterboard's coming down. You can get supply. Glass is still taking a while to turn around now, but people are putting other product in there as well to you know, because of environment now. So market prices are dropping in terms of build. So
it is settling, which will help bring
there's
people
a
back in.
22% rise, and that's going to come back to, I think, only 5%.
Okay.
And I think interest rates will start falling next year, March. And, you know, I don't think we'll have another interest rate rise.
Well, we'll remind you of this.
Yeah. So we're set for a reasonably good run up to Christmas. And I think from January, February next year, it'll get going again. And people will start seeing better returns on the money again. But, you know, property prices are still going up. We feel we could put our price at another 6, 7, or 8% and still sell. And it's feeling your way into the market, but quality will always sell, even in a bad market. And if you're turning churn out, you might be struggling a bit at the moment, but if you're doing something that's decent quality, then your tenants are staying, still paying the rent. So I think there's a flight to quality in a bad market. But overall, yeah, I think by March next year, everything should have turned a corner.
Malum, the best bit of business advice that you've received from the guy sitting next to you?
There was something that David said when I first joined Alliance. We were in Axis, which is one of the PAG's landmark buildings, and which stuck with me, which was pay peanuts, get monkeys. And I think that stems back to the recurring theme of this podcast, which David is saying is quality of what they do. By putting quality, by putting the best kitchens, by putting the best bathrooms, flooring into his apartments, it allows them to get best value. We're not, and we don't want to be, the cheapest in the city. And as a result, we are able to get the best pound per square foot. We're able to attract the right tenants. We reduce the void periods for our investors, and our management companies are set up to create a hassle-free journey for our investors. So that's something that stuck with me that David said.
And look, I have to give it to you. We work for various other developers. You have to see it with your own eyes to really appreciate the quality that goes into your builds. Some of the team went up to view Oxygen, and we were blown away, in truth, because it's very easy to put things together with CGI and glossy brochures and whatnot. But when you see the depth and the attention to detail, that gym in Oxygen isn't a gym. You pay. I know people are paying £200 a month for gym memberships, and that doesn't even come close to what you put in your building. But how do you strike a balance between that level of quality and making a pound note?
Well, I have to say, because we really drive the quality and drive the style and the design, the girl that did all that, which is my daughter-in-law, Alex's wife, she went well over budget on it. And that's the other challenge that people have to have, which you can get style, you can get quality. You don't have to buy it. You can actually create it with thought and care and attention. And Vicky achieved that and did a fantastic job, without a doubt. But yeah, we went over budget there, but I'm not upset about it, because of course when I walked in I was very proud, very happy for her. And that's about, again, giving people a license to go out and explore. And she felt that if she did that, it would be amazing and fantastic. And it was, and that's where we got record rental in there. Huge rental.
Not surprised,
We're way above any other rental there. And there's a waiting list to go into Oxygen, which is amazing. That's fantastic. And so yeah, she's following my ethos there. But at the time I got the final budget, but I thought, wow. So I went immediately to have a look at it, and it's probably worth it.
Yeah, fine. And
well, Matrix was that they equipped the gym, didn't they?
Yeah.
And they said that the Oxygen gym is the best gym within any residential development outside of London. So it just gives you an idea.
I think the biggest mistake I made is to give all the staff huge discounts. So Malum bought in there. The architect who designed all the best buildings in Manchester has moved in and bought in there, and they all got extra special discount off me. So I was maybe too soft, because there's probably about 15 of those apartments.
That's what your margin is.
Yeah, probably you're right.
But I remember just on that, and I remember your face distinctly when we set up the partnership between Alliance and Magna. When I was training your team, I saw your face, because we encourage viewings. And I think where you've worked with other developers, it may not be the case. We want investors to go and see the product before they buy. We want them to go and see sites that we've completed, because for us, it basically
sells itself, doesn't it?
It sells itself and does the closing for us. Whereas other developers, they don't necessarily have that ability or the as strong a track record as Property Alliance Group. So we're very pro viewings, and it helps.
Yeah, it does.
It does. And look, wrapping this up, the best bit of advice that you were given, David.
Best bit of advice I was given is literally what my dad said when I was 15. If you have to make decisions in life, if you can apply it to an old saying, no smoke without fire, burning hands with two in the bush. And there's enough old sayings around, and if you apply your life to that, then you won't go far wrong, because they've been around a long time. And so I followed that quite heavily, and that for me sticks as the best advice I've ever had. Really.
Well, on that note, I think it's a good place to end. David, thank you so much for joining us on Magnum Eats. Malum, thanks for coming back.
Thank you for having us.
And I still remember that deal that we made when we get to 21. I think we're doing the podcast in Oxygen, aren't we?
We will. We'll do it in the private dining area.
And I'll take you out for the night out afterwards.
All right, I'm in trouble. Guys, thanks so much for watching, and see you on the next episode.